So last year I reviewed the Narwal S30 Pro, and honestly, it became my favorite wet and dry vacuum cleaner. So when Narwal reached out to ask if I'd be interested in reviewing the new S30 Pro, the successor to that machine, of course, I was excited to try it out. So yes, this review is sponsored, but as always, Narwal had absolutely no input on this video. They have not seen a script. They're actually seeing the same video you guys are seeing right now, and this is a critical review. So I will be critical of the machine. I will be sharing my own thoughts and opinion, and it is a review at the end of the day and not an ad or a showcase. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Now, before we dive into the performance, I want to point out that Narwal actually released two versions this time. There's the S30 and the S30 Pro. So I'll go over the differences between them and also what has changed compared to last year's S20 Pro. The first major difference, the S30 Pro has a built-in hair cutting blade on the base, and the S20 Pro, last year's model, and the regular S30 don't have them. Now, at first glance, I was a bit surprised to see that feature because the S20 Pro, last year's model, and the regular S30, they have a dual layer comb that does a great job at detangling hair. And matter of fact, it was 100% tangle free no matter how much hair I threw at it. So I was a bit surprised to see that feature because I did not feel there was a need for it. We were getting 100% tangle-free brush rolls anyway. So I did reach out to Narwal to inquire about that. And according to their research, some pet owners with heavy shedders were still getting some tangles. So the S30 Pro's hair cutter is designed to deal with those situations. And I do put that to the test later on in the review. Another change with the new S30s is the self-washing and self-drying cycles. Now, the S20 Pro used to wash its brush roll at 104 degrees Fahrenheit, that's around 40 degrees Celsius. The S30 bumps that up to 176 Fahrenheit or 80 Celsius. And then the S30 Pro goes even higher to 194 Fahrenheit or about 90 degrees Celsius. The same thing applies to the self-drying. Last year's S20 Pro dried at 149 Fahrenheit or around 65 Celsius, the S30 at 158 or 70 Celsius, and then the S30 Pro is even higher at 194 Fahrenheit or 90 Celsius. Now, all these are according to Narwal's specs, and later in the review, I will test them out to see if those hotter numbers, at least on paper, actually make any difference. Another notable change is that both S30 models now come with a disposable waste bag or filter and a deodorizing box. Now, if you've seen any of my earlier wet and dry vacuum reviews, you'll know I've always appreciated when models have a way to separate solids from liquids in the dirty water tank, because that way you can dump the solids in your garbage bin and then pour the liquids down your toilet. Now, most models have a plastic filter that work fairly well, but still required cleaning, and sometimes solids would still slip through. The S30 in both models now have a disposable mesh filter bag that catches all the solids, so cleanup is basically just throwing the bag away and popping in a new one. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of consumables, but if you value minimal maintenance over having to wash parts or clean them, you'll probably love this. And if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can stick with the plastic filter that is already on the dirty water tank, which also does a fairly good job at catching solid debris. You just need to rinse and wash that. The deodorizing box is also new. It sits in the dirty water tank and helps with smells, which is a nice little touch. The dirty water tank capacity is also gone up slightly from 670 milliliters on the S20 Pro to 720 milliliters on both S30s. And there is a new wood floor mode, which uses less water and higher section for hardwood floors. Which brings me to the cleaning modes on the S30. Both models have what they are now calling AI mode, which was the smart mode on the S20, and this one monitors how much dirt or debris is on the floor and adjusts the cleaning power accordingly. There's still a quiet mode on both of them, which is, as the name suggests, a quieter mode. There's the wood floor mode that I just mentioned earlier, and there's still a suction-only mode, and that one is not pure suction. It still dispenses a little bit of water, so I would not recommend using this on carpets, but you can use it to dry your floors, your bathroom floors, or otherwise if there's water or liquid on that. And then the S30 Pro, similar to the S20 Pro, still has that max enhancement mode. That's a trigger on the handle that you press, which maximizes both suction mode, but also the amount of water being dispensed, and that's for heavy stings. There is no trigger on the S30, however you do have the max mode. You just have to press and hold the mode button to get that. Another thing only the S30 Pro has is the auto solution dispensing tank, which is similar to the one we had on the S20 Pro, and that's a tank that you fill with cleaning solution, and it's gonna automatically dose the right amount, mix it in with the clean water. On the S30, there's no auto dispensing tank. However, of course, you can still use the cleaning solution. You just have to dose in the right amounts manually as you fill the clean water tank. And of course, both the S30 and S30 Pro can lay down completely flat at 180 degrees and have dual side edge cleaning. That is, the brush roll extends to the edge on both sides, and they still don't have motorized wheels, but there is assistance coming in from the brush roll itself. So there is a forward assistance as you are using it. It does make using the machine easier. All right, so now let's talk about the cleaning performance. And the cleaning performance is the same on both models. So I actually ran the tests with one of them. I would expect the same results from the other. And as usual, I ran my standard stress tests. I put some coffee on the floor and I let it dry over 12 hours. And as you can see, it had absolutely no issue getting the coffee out from the first run. And here you can also see the edge cleaning performance, which was good. It wasn't the best that I've seen. Very few machines get closer to the edge, but for the most part, the performance here was pretty good. It got decently close to the edge, which was nice to see. And then I moved on to dried ketchup, also left out for 12 hours, and that's a very tough stain. And while it did need multiple passes, the S30 eventually did get it all off as expected. And then the fresh ketchup stain as well, absolutely no issue. First run gets all of the ketchup out. Milk and cereal as well, no problem at all. Everything was picked up on the first run. And this is where you see the AI mode, or the smart automatic sensor, actually kick the machine into a higher power as it sucks out the cereal and the milk. And another thing you can see in this test is the benefit of that mesh filter. Instead of a mix of soggy cereal on the dirty water tank that you would need to clean out, you can just remove the bag and throw it away and pop in a new one. And here's what the brush roll looked like after those tests. And then this is what it looked like after running the self-cleaning cycle. And as you can see, it did a great job at getting it clean. Now let's talk a bit about the higher temperatures in self-cleaning, as those were one of the things that changed from the previous model. As I said, the Pro gets to 194 Fahrenheit, the regular S30 to 176, and the S20 Pro topped out at 104 degrees. But here's the thing, the machine isn't actually heating the water in the cleaning session. It's heating a plate under the brush roll or behind the brush roll, and the brush roll is spinning against it while water is being sprayed on it. In my opinion, in a short cleaning cycle like this is, which lasts just a few minutes, where you're not actually heating the water itself, but you're supplying room temperature water to a brush roll and it's rotating against a hot heating plate, the higher temperature does not make much difference for the actual washing. And I kind of confirmed that using the thermal camera, which I did not notice any significant difference in any of the machines, even the S20 Pro, which heats up to a much lower temperature. Where it does make a difference, however, is in the drying, and that's because, well, first of all, you're not continuously saturating the brush roll with fresh water, but also the heating session is a longer session, and this is where you actually see a difference in temperature. So the S20 hit temperatures of around 50 degrees Celsius, while the S30s, both of them hit over 70 degrees. Though on that, I did not really notice any difference between the S30 and S30 Pro, when the Pro was supposed to have or reach higher temperatures, but they both were consistently hitting over 70 degrees Celsius, where last year's S20 topped out at 50 degrees Celsius, as I said. So that benefit here in the drying session does translate into slightly faster drying sessions, but also higher temperatures means better chance at disinfection and in killing bacteria. One thing I want to note here, and it's something I absolutely love about the Narwhals, they had it in the S20 and they still do in the S30s, it's that the drying session is an adaptive drying session, which means it does not run for a preset period of time like all other wet and dry vacuums do. It actually starts off with a 20-minute session, but then dynamically adjusts or extends that session if it detects that the brush roll is still wet, which is really great. Now in my tests, all it took was 20 minutes to dry the brush roll, but we are in summer, it is hot, there's not a lot of humidity where I am. So if I was testing this under different conditions, it would have taken more than 20 minutes. And I love the fact that the drying session is gonna continue drying the brush roll until it is actually dry, rather than stop after a predefined amount of time. There's also been a good improvement in how loud the drying was. Now the S20 was one of the quietest at around 40 decibels, and that's because it doesn't rely on a fan to dry the brush roll as most other wet and dry vacuums do, but rather on that hot plate that I was talking about. The advantage is it is much quieter, and I'm happy to see that with the S30 Pro, that quiet drying session is even quieter, and I measured that at around 34 decibels, which is even better. Now let's talk about the anti-hair tangle and the hair cutting blade. And as I said earlier, even without the blade, the S30 and even the S20 did an excellent job at detangling hair. Look at this test, for example. I threw in a lot of long strands of hair, and none of them were tangled on the brush roll. Unfortunately, I do not have pets, so I cannot test this out with, heavy shedding pets, but I was curious to see how that blade actually works. So what I ended up doing, I actually manually tangled hair on the brush roll. That was the only way I can get hair to stay on the brush roll. And I put it back on the base, and I started the cleaning session, which starts off with the blade going across the brush roll to cut off the hair. And as you can see over here, the blade makes a run across the brush roll and cuts the hair, and then it sucks them into the machine. So in case you actually have pets and a lot of heavy shedding and hair on the floor, then this feature might come in handy for you. But rest assured, even if you get the S30 or even the S20, which does not have the blade, it still does an excellent job at detangling hair. So here are my final thoughts on the S30 and the S30 Pro. To be honest, the S20 Pro was and still is one of my favorite wet and dry vacuum cleaners. And the S30s take an already excellent machine and do some marginal incremental updates here and there. Now, on that point, I do want to mention one thing that was a downgrade in my opinion, and it's a real shame, and that is the screen. So the S20 Pro had the best screen I've ever seen on any wet and dry vacuum cleaner. It showed animations to tell you what the machine is doing. It had a countdown timer so you can know how much time is left in a drying or a cleaning session, etc. Fortunately, Narwal decided to replace that screen with a more basic screen on the S30 Pro. That's a more of an aesthetic thing and doesn't really impact performance. But that's a shame because I really love the screen on the S20 Pro. And another very minor thing that they also removed was the dirty water tank had a handle that you can lift off, and it just pops the dirty water tank out of its place, which also they removed it. So right now you just have to use brute force to pull the dirty water tank out. It's not a big thing, just a small thing, but it's also a shame that they removed that. But other than that, the S20 Pro was a great machine, and the S30 builds up on that with slightly better upgraded features. The slightly hotter and faster drying was nice to see. The deodorizer and the disposable bags are really nice to make maintenance easier. And the hair cutter, if you are a household with a lot of hair, is something you don't see on any other machine. So this could also come in handy if you have pets or someone who sheds a lot of hair. So that's it for me. I hope this review was helpful. I'll put links to both the S30 and S30 Pro in the description. These are affiliate links, so if you do decide to purchase any of those machines, I would appreciate if you would go through these links. I may earn a commission and absolutely no extra cost to you, but this will greatly help support the channel. As always, if you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.